Well, welcome, Amy Banocy. It's so great to see you and hear you. And this has been a long time coming. Well, not really, but I've been so
Feels like
excited
it.
about it. I've been so excited to meet you. You and we met online actually on a private group for podcasting, and we just made this connection. And you are the author of Amazon's number one bestseller called Bearing It All, Reflections of My Breast Cancer Fuckery. And we're going to talk about your book today. And I'm so excited. You sent me a book. You sent me your book, and I could not put that thing down. How are you doing today?
Today I'm good.
Good.
I think every day is that answer can vary for anybody, but especially once you've had a major life challenge such as breast cancer.
Right. I get that 100%. And so hopefully my audience is sitting back having either a cup of coffee or maybe they're driving to work or whatever. I just want everybody to sit back and listen to this conversation with me and you because we have so much in common. And by the way, I have my mug today. It says live, laugh, love, and fuck cancer. And so I like to have a little coffee with my conversations in that mug because I'm out on this other side of breast cancer as well. But there are so many things that happen, you know, after the fact that you and I just have so many things in common. I was reading your book and I think I read it probably within a week, just because I would read a little bit before I went to bed, and I could not put that thing down. Like I was up until midnight sometimes reading it, and then I would send you a text message and say, "Oh my God, I can't believe you just said this. This is exactly what I said or thought." So I want my audience to know that Bearing It All is a memoir, and it was actually written twice, and we're going to talk about that later. Um, I would like you to give my audience, kind of walk us through who you are, what your diagnosis was, and what your treatments were like, and just kind of walk us through who you are, Amy.
So, yes, I am Amy. And prior to this, I would find let me start actually personally. I always kind of go right to the professional, but I'll tell you. So, personally, I'm a mom of three boys. Busy, rambunctious life here, and have an amazing husband. And we live right outside Washington, D.C., so in the hustle and bustle of it all. And professionally, prior to breast cancer, I was all things happiness. And I would say, actually, personally and professionally, serial optimist or happiness guru was kind of the terms that people would throw around for me. And I share that because it leads in with my book, and also because I professionally was a writer. I had contributed to another well-known book before, and was doing speaking and working in that space, really spreading this message of the power of positivity and happiness and joy in our lives, and everything roses and sunshine. And then I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it truly, Jamie, when I say it challenged me in ways I never thought I'd be challenged, that would be an understatement. So coming into this, I thought I'm going to handle it just like I handle everything else, right? I got this diagnosis. It was the tail end of 2020, which, as we know, was a year of fuckery anyway. And, in the pandemic, I had gone for my routine mammogram, which I was only 43 at the time, but I had been having mammograms for probably about 10 years, maybe 8 to 10 years at that point, just because I had cystic, dense breast tissue that had not really cooperated in the past. And so they were, yeah, can relate.
I can
Um,
relate.
so I hadn't gone every year, but I had mammograms. But since I was over 40, this was my routine mammogram. Had never feared a mammogram, had never had a callback for a mammogram, had never had to have an ultrasound, all the things. So I got the call that they needed a follow-up mammogram. And of course, I thought, well, I even asked the woman, is that because they saw something? Is it because they didn't get the right imaging? And she couldn't really tell me, but I went for the follow-up mammogram. And there was a telltale sign that I knew at that appointment that they were going to tell me it was breast cancer. And that telltale sign was the tech had repeated something that was said during my first mammogram there, which was, "Are you wearing any powder or deodorant today?" And I knew I was not at the first, and I knew I was not that day. And I thought, shit. They're seeing those little white speckles that are the reason they tell you not to wear powder or deodorant. So fast forward after knowing I needed to get a biopsy to having the biopsy, which women, if you have not had, I don't know if everyone's breast biopsy goes this way, but as I describe it in the book, it is much like feeling like an automobile being worked on because they slide under the table like a mechanic and, pull the juices out. But I was diagnosed at that point with DCIS, which I was familiar with because my mom had actually been diagnosed with DCIS years ago. It was a single spot, and she had a lumpectomy. And truly at that time, and she made it out to be something so small, I would say, that I thought, oh, okay, this is like nothing. Yeah. And whether that helped or not, I'm not sure. But what ended up happening was, through the course of that and being introduced to a breast surgeon and going for MRIs and other tests, I actually was told that the DCIS was so widespread that a lumpectomy was not going to be an option. They were going to need to take my entire breast. And I then had the choice whether to do a bilateral mastectomy or a single. And I had always said, if I ever get cancer, just like take them, I don't care. Well, that's a little bit harder, I found, when you're in that moment. And it was an easy decision because I knew in my mind, take both of them. But it was not simple because it's a part of me. And I really didn't think I was going to have such a hard time with that loss and coming to terms. And I now know, looking back, that a lot of that was fear and anger. I mean, I was really fucking mad at the cancer, but I didn't know how to express it at that point. So anyhow, had a bilateral mastectomy. They took 2 lymph nodes, just to be sure, because we don't think there's anything. It's just, DCIS. And in my follow-up, then found out that it was something a little bit more. And both of those lymph nodes came back positive, or came back as cancerous. And so that changed now from not just a mastectomy to chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and radiation. Along the way, had some changes to that plan as well. I got to, as I say, I got to check all the boxes.
Yeah, the universe was saying, Amy, if we're going to give you cancer, we're going to give it to you fucking good.
Yeah, we're going to make sure that you really know how to talk about this after. We know you're a talker and a writer, so we want you to be able to cover it all.
There's your silver lining, Amy. And we're going to talk about silver linings. Gosh, what a crazy story. And your book, Bearing It All, really you did such a great job explaining each piece. And I know that there's a lot more that you can put in there, but it does a really good job. You did a great job at really explaining and describing what your thought process was. It kind of goes between what you actually said to people and people were saying to you, to your stream of consciousness of what was going on inside you. And I want to say that I remember that anger. I was so angry at cancer. I was angry at what my life had become. And I remember when my husband took me, it was the day I got my port in, and I also had a PET scan that day. It was scan after blood test after, you know it all.
All the
Um,
abundance.
all the things. And I remember that it was June 30th, 2022, when I was going in for the PET scan. And later that afternoon, I was going in to get my port installed. And I got out of the car at the PET scan place and I just lost it. I looked up at the building and it said, what did it say? City of Hope or something like that. And I and I looked up there and I'm like, "Fuck." Like my life, look, what has my life come to? My life for the next however long is going to be doctor appointment after poking and prodding and all the things. And I actually literally had a full on meltdown in the parking lot. And my husband had to come around the car, pick me up, pick my water bottle up that I had just broken, my favorite water bottle, pick it up, put it in the car, and literally help me into the building to get this PET scan. I was like a little child, just blubbering, and then later on that afternoon, I had to go get the port, and my surgeon had to seriously talk me off the ledge because I had some things that were said to me the night before that were not helpful. And we're going to talk about that later, though. Um, so yeah, I understand fully what your thought process was and your emotions were at that time. The writing of your book, Bearing It All, reveals an interesting part of your life's journey. You essentially wrote the book twice. Can you give us a rundown on how you came to the understanding that it really needed to be written again?
Yeah, other than the fact that, I like to do things the not so easy way and a little bit of a perfectionist. But in all seriousness, what happened was I wrote the book and I had a full manuscript and I sent it to what are called beta readers in the publishing world. And a couple of those beta readers were people who knew me, who had gone through this period of time with me, and who also were writers, writing coaches, etc. So they had both the personal and the professional side that they were bringing to reading my manuscript. And the purpose of a beta reader is to do just that, be one of the first readers and give you feedback, tell you where it's lacking, where it needs more meat, etc. And these two kind, brave souls, and I say brave because they didn't have to do this, basically got me on a call together and said, in short, this is great. It's phenomenal, but this isn't what you said you wanted to write. And that was a little, and they paused and gave me a moment to accept that and to ask, what do you mean? And I remember something along the lines of, you said that you wanted to tell the real story behind a woman with breast cancer. And what I had actually written at that point was kind of like a pep talk for women with breast cancer, like a you got it, girl, just go meditate and do some yoga. It's going to be fucking awesome. And they're like, this is exactly what you said like you didn't want. And they sat with me in that. They're both also like very soulfully connected to me. And we sat in that space and they said, just sit with this and see what you want to do. Like, we're not telling you go rewrite your book, but if it's what you wanted to put out, this isn't it. And it didn't take me long. I sat with it for maybe 24 hours and I thought, oh, crap. It is really hard to write this thing and it took months and I need to do it over. And what I realized in that process and why I share that in the book is it is so critical to who I am and why I had to do that. So that You Got It Girl pep talk version was really before cancer Amy showing up. It was this happiness person who always relied on positivity, who, like couldn't face those really tough, what's so-called negative emotions we experience, which I hate that because they're not negative, they're just the other. And that was her showing up. And I think I had to, or not, I know. And I went back and I told those two women and now told the world through my book, I had to purge that out of me. It was like this cleansing of that person in order to write from the person I am now, which is someone who understands or is still coming to understand, but has been forced to understand that all of our emotions need to come out and play.
So I really I, we kind of went into the next question, which is great because I kind of want to add on to that. You talk about this before cancer, Amy, and after cancer, Amy. And you and I know, being on the other side, that we are different. I'm Jamie at the core, you're Amy at the core, but we're a different Amy and Jamie, right? And by the way, I have a really good friend who helped me a lot during cancer named Lee. Your sister's name is Lee. And that's another thing that was in common. And it's spelled the same way. So, um,
No.
yeah, I was like, Amy and Lee and Jamie and Lee. It's just so bizarre. I'm like, sister, like we need to meet each other in person and go have like a girls trip or something.
Yes.
Um, so given that before cancer Amy and after cancer Amy, what and I want to preface this to my audience by saying, if you are a person listening to this that was just diagnosed with breast cancer, you don't really know who you're going to be on the other side. We didn't know. We didn't have any idea what this journey, this fuckery was going to do to us. That being said, in the interest of inspiration, Amy, what would before cancer Amy before cancer Amy say to or what would after cancer Amy, sorry about that, I will edit that out. What would after cancer Amy, you now, say to before cancer Amy to help her as much as you can?
Yeah. It goes so much further than just cancer, right? It's not what after, let's say this, what Amy now would tell Amy then is it's okay to feel all of the emotions. It's okay. You don't have to protect other people. Your feelings are welcome. You can be mad, you can be sad, you can be angry, all of these things that people categorize as like negative emotions. And it does not make you a bad person. It does not make you a pessimist. It doesn't make you negative Nelly. You can have all of it and still be optimistic. And speaking to what you just said about, not truly getting it until you're there. I remember when I was first diagnosed, I was connected with someone else who I knew through a mutual friend. And she said to me something like, I know you can't, this doesn't make sense right now, but I promise you something good is going to come out of this. She's like, I'm not telling you that like you're going to be happy you had cancer, but something amazing is going to happen. And I remember thinking, like, kind of like you before when you rolled up to City of Hope, right? Like, I was like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, I'm going for surgery or whatever it was, right? The next day. But it's true. And I liken it to, I mean, a totally different part of my life, but there's so many similarities that I can make between parenting and motherhood and having a baby that I make to this cancer fuckery. Not that that was a fuckery, but that like the things you don't know until you experience and can actually know them.
Right. And you have come out on the other end, on the other side, should I say, with this really great story to tell. And there are some people who might not think that hearing someone's story at the beginning of their diagnosis would really benefit them. I have to say, I'm here today to tell you, and I don't really know for sure, but I do think that if I had read this book before, like when I was first diagnosed, I would at least have an understanding of where you were before and where you were after. So I would have a little more optimism. I would know that it was okay for me to feel all the feels. And I would understand that I didn't have to protect other people's feelings. I would understand my marriage better because with your marriage to Derek, you guys were on the verge of divorce essentially at the beginning, and then you got your diagnosis, and you now clearly have an amazing marriage on the other side. Yeah, am I right on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we were necessarily on the verge of divorce, but life was very complicated for
Okay.
us and it was not in a great space. We were on the way to making some headway, but yeah, it's so much better now.
He clearly stepped up, and that really created that bond, and that does not happen to everyone. And as we know,
No.
the statistics of divorces during a breast cancer diagnosis or any real cancer diagnosis. Um, so I will tell you, I laughed and cried throughout your book. I couldn't believe it. I would like my husband would be laying next to me, and I would be reading something. I'm like, oh my god, oh he's sleeping. So so I would write it down. I'm like, I gotta tell Amy this. So I laughed and cried throughout your book because I noticed so many parallels with yours and my journey, including your inner and outer thoughts and emotions. I did not read the reviews on your book before I started reading it. Um, and I will say that your book is written in such a really unique way that it truly captures what we go through. And I want to thank you personally for doing that. And given the fact that I did read the reviews afterwards, clearly people love it. And because it's so real, the good, the bad, the ugly, what we need to know. And I want to actually, um, because you just talked about before Amy and after Amy, I want to read a little excerpt from your book, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
So at the very end, and I encourage everybody who's reading this, read it to the end, please, because it reveals so much. You have a letter to your family and friends that really reveal a lot. And then you also have a lot of acknowledgments, and I love that. But you're towards the end, I think it might be your very last chapter, I'm pretty sure. Next to last. So it's called Forged by Fire, and it was on December 12th, 2021. And you met with your friend Leighton. Leighton, is that how you pronounce
Mhm.
her name?
Yeah.
So it says meals have been ordered and mimosas delivered to the table. It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen Leighton, and we have a lot to catch up on, as we typically don't go this long without seeing each other. My emotions have been on fire, and I need the support of my bestie. I am so grateful to have this time with her. Sorry, I'm going to cry because this was.
I'm, I am as well.
She says, "How are you?" That's what Leighton asks. Some people just want to hear, "I'm fine," when they ask the question, but I know she wants the real answer. And I know I want and need to give it to her. I'm a mess. As she always does, she invites me to say more. It's one of the ways I know she's my best friend, because she truly wants to know what has me feeling this way. I share how it seems like I'm experiencing this crazy wave of emotions now that chemo and radiation are over. I finally have a chance to come up for air, a moment to breathe, and now I'm facing a trauma of my body and mind and have endured over the past 11 months. Both my oncologist and therapist had told me PTSD in breast cancer patients has been proven in studies, so I haven't been completely surprised by these feelings of anxiety and depression. With tears welling up, I lean in and tell her, I feel totally broken. I don't know if I'll ever be the same optimistic person I've always been, and that makes me really sad. This entire experience has rocked me. I'm reminded of a gift my sister gave me shortly after I was diagnosed, a beautiful pewter heart charm with a crack in it, and has been sealed by embossment. The charm is called Perfectly Imperfect, and the accompanying card shares about the Japanese form. Is it kintsugi?
Kintsugi.
Kintsugi, thank you. Kintsugi is the art of treating breakage and repair as part of the history of an object, rather than something to disguise by mending the broken area of pottery and ceramics. In this philosophy, the Japanese are able to find beauty and value in the brokenness. And then you have a citation there. Kelly Richmond, Abdu of 2022. I have dealt with anxiety and depression since I was a teenager, and I have certainly felt broken before. This time feels different. In past incidences, I had some control over was causing the feelings. With cancer, I haven't had that control. I see my scars in the mirror and feel ugly and tarnished. I've lost my sense of self and my way in the world, causing deep shame. I question who I am, what I'm worth, and how this cancer fuckery will impact the rest of my life. None of this has been up to me, and I am furious. Leighton knows all this, and she isn't here to fix the situation at hand. She is here to bear witness to my pain, to sit in it with me, and be a mirror for me. With a smile, she boldly says, "You're not going to be the same person, Amy. This is going to change you forever. But I believe it's made you into an even better version of yourself. Anyone can see they are a glass half full person and then lose that view through a traumatic event. You didn't lose it. You moved through it with strength and grace, showing people that all this can't stop you." So I didn't lose my spark, I ask. And then I share the earlier conversation I had with Jen about how her biggest fear was I'd lose my spark. I have been thinking so much about this and really feeling ashamed. Have I lost my spirit? Have I lost what people love about me? What I love about myself? What makes me me? No, you didn't lose it. You basically threw gasoline all over that shit. You are more on fire now than ever before. You were always going to make an impact and talk to people about the power of optimism. Now you have this story to make it all even more impactful. You've been forged by fire, Amy. That's me, too. That really got to me. And so it's funny because when I first got diagnosed, my husband and I were at this chalk art thing, and I ran across this really freaking killer chalk art. It was this huge phoenix, and the artwork was called Phoenix Catching Fire. And it had this big huge claw, and it spoke to me so much that I started a Facebook group, a private one called Phoenix Catching Fire, Jamie's cancer story. I should have said fuckery, but but I told the good, the bad, the ugly. I still have people on that group. I haven't been real active on it lately, but that's what I called it. And so when I read that, I was like, holy cow, that is, I've been forged by fire. You've been forged by fire. So I went in and read some reviews, and I was really, really astounded and happy of all the reviews that I read. And I would like to read you mine, if you wouldn't mind.
I need to get some more tissues.
I know. I know, and I just this is very heartfelt. I put this on Amazon and Goodreads. Now Amazon wouldn't let me cuss, so I had to like So what I said was where to begin with my experience with this book by breast cancer survivor Amy Banocy. First, I am blown away at Amy's ability to capture so many pieces of her cancer fuckery in one book. I am sure there is way more that can be said. Second, there are so many similarities that parallel my own cancer fuckery, which had me crying with laughter and bawling about her experience while thinking about my own. There were numerous occasions for the beginning of the breast cancer diagnosis that I had thoughts that astounded me beyond belief. I felt so many emotions, and two of them were guilt and anger. Angry with what my life had become after being so happy and healthy all my life. Guilty about what I was putting my husband through. How could this be happening to me? I had dark feelings that made me think about how selfish I had become. Why did I feel these emotions and think the things I was thinking? Many of Amy's descriptions in her stream of consciousness and descriptions of unexpected detours the entire journey mirrored my own. Every single time I read a chapter, there was something extremely similar, if not the same. While it's true that we all experience different journeys, there are things in common that we have with our pink sisters, and that is the myriad of emotions and thoughts that are so intense that we do not even recognize ourselves, along with all of the unexpected happenings we experience, and yes, lots of silver linings. Amy has managed to capture her rocky marriage with her husband Derek, which was, I did say, which was on the verge of divorce, so I can take that out, but I know that it was rocky at the beginning of her diagnosis, to how their relationship evolved over time, which turned out even better than before. 40% of couples split up because of this diagnosis, and thankfully Amy and Derek's situation was different. Thank you, Amy, for sharing your silver linings and what you have learned because of your journey. I love the letter to your family and your friends, and the acknowledgement, or to your family, and all the acknowledgments at the end. Your friends were correct in encouraging you to write the book again, because it is real, raw, and no holds barred, which is what most of us need to know. For those who are newly diagnosed, Amy has managed to validate your emotions, feelings, and thoughts. We see you and understand you. It is human nature and important to feel all the feels. Please do not let anyone tell you differently. You are not crazy. You are not selfish. You are allowed to have others hold space for you. You are human, and this is a fucked up situation, and books like Amy's will validate that. Oftentimes in our culture, we are subjected to toxic positivity and made to feel that we must stay positive in order to have a good outcome. Amy is here to tell you that this is pure bullshit, and I agree with her. You are not alone. I wish I would have read Amy's book when I was first diagnosed. Bravo, Amy. And it's just God, thank you for sending me your book. Um so I want to go into asking you this other question. Why are you so passionate about creating safe spaces for women with breast cancer, and also bringing in a more realistic messaging around breast cancer?
So if you don't mind, before we go there, sniffle, sniffle. Um, just thank you, because when we put work out in the world, or we put our thoughts out in the world, this is by far the most vulnerable thing I've ever done. The book, and unfortunately, a part of that is that you're going to get people who don't agree with you. And I had to face some criticism. I wouldn't call it feedback. I don't even know that I'd call it criticism. I had to face some really, really horrendous words to me, not from bots, not from people I didn't know, but from people that had been involved in my life. And things like that, the way our brains work, we tend to reflect on a lot of times the negative. Um, and just this morning, I was even thinking about it again and hearing you read that back to me. I have to say, I have not read the book since I put it out. It was published in January. And hearing you read that back to me and hearing your reflection of my work and of my words and of my truth is just so meaningful to me. And it's such a reminder of what I know was my true reason for writing this book. And I know that my words come from a place of love. And yeah, thank you for that,
Thank thank you.
for that
Thank you
reminder.
for being one of those people who is just like, fuck you. I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm going through right now. And I don't care what you think. And if you want to show up for me, then show up for me. If you don't want to show up for me, then don't fucking show up for me.
And I'll
And
say,
that's why I know that's really hard. I
it is
understand that's
hard,
really hard.
especially, I mean, I still don't know that I would put myself in that category. I'm still like a recovering people pleaser. The fact is, though, is that I knew, like, there are things, and this goes to what I'm going to have you repeat the question again, but this is part of that answer of why it is so important to me is like, well, read the question again, and then I'll include this in it.
So, why are you so passionate about creating safe spaces for women with breast cancer and also bringing in more realistic messaging around breast cancer?
Okay, so it was not my experience, right? Like my experience was all the positivity. It was, and listen, to anyone listening to this who is a medical professional, who is supporting somebody with breast cancer, with any life trauma, with cancer, or even none of the above, but heck, that's probably going to at some point be in your future because we know the numbers. You are likely going to support somebody. Take all of this from a place of love. I know, I'll speak for myself, that that the words I received were also from a place of love, right? Telling me constantly, stay strong, stay positive. You've got this. You're the strongest woman I know. I don't know how you're doing this. I know that all of those words came from a good place. I know that because I have said them too before going through this myself. What I can tell you now, being on the other side of this, is that when I was going through this, I'm going to not speak for everybody. When I was going through the fuckery, I wanted somebody to just be real with me. I wanted somebody to just even say, fuck, that sounds really hard. Or, you know, just sitting in it with me, maybe not even necessarily saying anything. And I had incredible support through all of this, let me say. That's why there's like pages of acknowledgments in this book. Yet at times I felt so alone because I was truly the only one going through what I was going through, right? Which is okay, the human experience. Like we all only have our own human existence, but I wanted to find people who were also going through this. And so I sought out support groups. And unfortunately, back up to remind you, this was during the pandemic. So most of what I was going to find was virtual, which was the space we were living in. And also because we were so immune compromised, like there was no going out during a pandemic. Um, but anyhow, I didn't find what I was looking for. Like I found in these groups a few things. I found they were either super downtrodden and not just because of cancer. Like I could just tell it wasn't the space that I needed to be in. Or they were just very roses and sunshine, which I was like, okay, I want there's got to be a space for this positivity in this roses, well, not roses and sunshine, because it's not, but there's got to be a space for all the positivity. But I need somewhere that I can show up as me. Like I almost felt like I had to put on a mask to get on a support group cancer Zoom, which looking back at it now, I'm like, well, how fucked up is that? Like, I should be able to, at my worst of my worst, I should be able to show up completely as myself and be accepted and not be judged and be able to say what I want to say and not feel like somebody's going to tell me, like, come on, you need to be more positive. We know how it's going to affect your health. Like, I know that. Like, I've studied that. That was my spiel before cancer. And so I came out of this, like, I mean, first writing the book, but even in writing it, the number of people that I met, I thought, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to create that safe and sacred space where women with breast cancer, whether they're in like the total dredges of it and, you know, losing hair and like not being able to keep food down and pissed at their friends who are getting to go out on Friday nights and they're just laying in bed, right? Like, oh, that was the worst. Or they're where we are now today, like on, as you said, this other side. We're on another side, but we are still in it, right? Like I talk about that in the book. Like cancer doesn't end because you ring some proverbial bell that says you finished putting poison in your body. No, cancer is still there.
Mhm.
And I just wanted that so badly that I don't know. I think it's in my nature too. Like I mean, I'm entrepreneurial and I'm creative and my brain works in this space of like, what do I need and what did I need and what was missing? And is that missing for other people? And my research says yes. Okay, I'm going to go create that space. And then also just like you said, making it not just about all the positivity, right? There's time and space for that. Please, I'm not saying that we're going to just like sit around and talk about all the bad stuff. It's not just bad. It's real, right? Like I wanted to know when I want women to know when they show up in community with me, they are welcome and accepted 100% themselves. And there's no judgment. And there's no right or wrong, bad or good. It's just what it is in that moment. And that is okay. And it's so, I think it's so important. Somebody asked me, this was going back to when we were chatting a minute ago. Somebody asked me a while back when I was talking about this message and how important it is to me. She said, I don't know, this is really what you ask somebody who's like right out of the throes of cancer. But she said, if you were to die tomorrow and this message that you have hadn't gotten out there, how would you feel? And I was like, ugh. Like it literally took my breath away and
Yeah.
gave me this feeling of like, that's how, and she asked me because she wanted me to get that feeling of knowing like, this is my purpose. This is my message and mission. And it did. I said, oh my God, I'd be devastated. Like I would be devastated to know that another woman went through breast cancer and felt the shame around her emotions that I felt. There, we face enough with a diagnosis like breast cancer, any cancer, right? We're facing enough. We don't need to add a layer of shame onto that. It's gotta, it has to shift. The conversation has got to broaden to include our full span of emotions.
Yeah, thank you for bringing all that in because I think you're absolutely right. And I want to go back to what you said about the things that people said to you that we perceive or others perceive might perceive as unhelpful. I like that you feel that that was from a space of love as well. And I have learned that that is absolutely true. And I used to say those things as well before cancer. So I don't um diss anybody for saying those kinds of things. And one of the reasons I started this podcast, Test Those Breasts, is because I wanted to be able to support and really shorten the learning curve for all people affected by this breast cancer, uh, you know, fuckery. And I, caregivers, friends, family, and newly diagnosed and people who are still surviving. And yes, we are always surviving. We are always in that space of, oh my God, is it going to come back? We always have that experience with us. And so thank you for, really clarifying that in how you feel and what you feel about what people say to you and what they don't say to you. I feel like you're a very, very empathetic human being and even more so now, which is great. And I actually feel that I've always been a pretty empathetic person and very optimistic as well. Um, but I'm glad that you also found the support that you needed, and I'm glad that you had such a huge support system. I also had a very huge support system. People came out of the woodwork that I didn't even know and really lended some great advice if I asked for it. I had a lot of great girlfriends that were able to sit in that space with me and not tell me everything is going to be okay, or be more, look for the silver linings or whatever it is. I actually have very, very good friends. One in particular I'll mention is my friend Paula, who is actually going through cancer right now. And she's a therapist also, and she's very much in, has the ability to sit with people and just say, wow, that sounds really fucked up, because, it's important for us to have that. And so I'm glad that you were able to have sort of both worlds, because it's important for us to experience both of those worlds to be able to have the understanding that we have now. I hope
Yeah.
all of that just made sense because I felt like I was rambling there, but I hope that message came across to you. Um, we need to wrap it up here, but I do have a few other questions for you. advocacy. This is so important for newly diagnosed women and men and anyone, you right? Advocacy is a huge topic with those diagnosed with breast cancer. How have you had to advocate for yourself during your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think we immediately go to advocating, or at least I do, go toward advocating to our like medically, right? Which is one area of it. And I did. I had to advocate when I wanted to bring in holistic treatment. I wanted to do acupuncture. I wanted to take certain supplements. I part of my medical team, in addition to a medical oncologist, was a naturopathic oncologist. And so I had to advocate a bit there, as well as when it came time for surgeries, what, I was doing and advocating for truly what I felt might be best for my body. And thankfully my doctor, my surgeon was able to talk to me about that. But I think there's a space for advocacy that sometimes is left untalked about. And that is how we advocate for ourselves amongst other people. I had to learn, and I talk about this in the book a lot. I had to learn how to advocate for myself in by way of setting boundaries, by way of telling people certain things that were off limits, or I'm not going to be doing that anymore, or no, I'm not going to call you after every appointment. And those are hard things for someone who has not traditionally set boundaries. And I now know that I was advocating for myself because I had to take care of me in what I needed in that time.
Interesting. Yeah, I actually learned how to set boundaries a lot better myself because before cancer, Jamie, I had a really difficult time with that because, like you, I have also been a people pleaser and I want to make sure that I am taking care of everyone else except for myself. And that's the way I was anyway. So I really had to set boundaries with friends and family and just all of that. And so, um, yeah, that's really interesting, Amy, that you were able to do that. And I think it's really important to be able to do that because I think that we feel guilty if we don't, again, call your friends or family after every single appointment because it's exhausting. It's overwhelming. And the last thing that we need to do is go through a list of things that we need to do after we just found out that we had to have a mastectomy or we had to, just found out that we in fact do have to have chemo and we're going to lose our hair and it's exhausting, which is one of the reasons I started the private Facebook group because I told people and I had a caring bridge. I said I don't want to repeat this every single time, so please join and see the updates and all the things so that I don't have to send individual messages to everyone. And I think everybody understood that. And so I think that if you are in my audience, if you are newly diagnosed, understand that you should be able to have some sort of outlet. If people, I know some people are really private and they don't say anything, they just sort of go underground and deal with what's going on. But if you are someone who has a lot of family members and friends who really want to know what's going on with you, I would highly recommend, finding some way to get that message out there, whether it be a caring bridge or whether it be a Facebook group or whatever you want to do or, a group text, whatever. So you don't have to say it and send the message 80 million times. That really helped me a lot. And that was advocating for myself, right, Amy?
Yeah.
Um, I had another question that I wanted. Oh, this is not a question, and I know we need to wrap up, but I really need to ask you this because I have a friend of mine who is actually few friends of mine who are newly diagnosed, and they just found out that they were going to lose their hair. I took my hair loss into my own hands. I was devastated about losing my hair. I mean, I had long blonde hair for a long time. It would go up here and here, but never this short. And I took upon myself to take control, and I had some girlfriends take me up to a local, hair salon, and I cut my hair into this badass haircut. It was all shaved on the side, and it was A-line, and I actually really loved it, and it lasted a week because my hair fell out pretty quickly after the first chemo. And and then I told my husband, I said, "Look, once it starts actually coming out, this is when you're gonna shave it." So he shaved it off. And it was a good experience because we had gone up to a place that we always go up to, and there were two other people there. One person was filming and taking pictures, and the other, and his mom was to cut my hair into a pixie cut, and then he shaved it. And I actually really liked it, and for whatever reason, I don't know, it was a really strange feeling, but my husband called me GI Jamie for a while, and then, of course, it started patching off, and I'm like, "Ugh," so I'd wear beanies and things like that. Can you I just want to, and I don't really have to ask a question of you necessarily, but you took it in, your hair loss under your control. You controlled how it was going to happen. You were at your salon, and your kids and your husband and your mom and dad all cut a piece off of your hair. Um, how did that make you feel? What advice do you have for people who are just about to lose their hair?
Mm. Interesting you should ask me that today, because I just today posted a picture of myself with most of my hair. I mean, it's pretty lengthy. It's to my shoulders. And, you know, put that on there to share with people who may. I put it on there with another picture from 2 years ago, to show that it does come back, because when you're in it, yeah. Well, I think with everything I say, do what like intuitively feels right for you. For some people, the cutting the hair off is more traumatic than than losing it. But yeah, for me, so it was actually at the suggestion of my stylist that has been cutting my hair for years and also cuts my kids' hair. So she knows my whole family. And she was through all of this with me, and she said, I knew somebody else, a friend of mine who was going through this, and I suggested she had a hair cutting party. And she kind of threw it out there to me, and I thought, huh, maybe I will do that. Like, to me, I mean, if you can't tell already, like, I'm all about community, bonding, support, all of those kinds of things. And to me, that's what it was. It was, we were all doing this together while I was the one in the chair sitting there with my, six long pigtails. And we cut off, I think it was, I say it in the book, but I think it was 13 inches of hair. It was long. And that was just to get, a short pixie cut, like you say. It made me feel like I was taking control, right? I was choosing to cut my hair. And at the same time, it still was like, it was almost like a fuck you to cancer, right? Like, yeah, you think you're going to take my hair. Well, I'm going to do it first. And same thing with, similar to you said about your husband shaving your head, my husband and my kids, well, a couple of them came into the bathroom when we shaved my head at home. And I actually did that live on Facebook. And same reason. It wasn't because like I wanted attention. I mean, please, that's like a pretty nasty thing to be like shaving my head. I did it because I had so much support and they couldn't be there with me physically. And it really did. Like, I remember feeling like, I mean, I'm watching this feed go and like seeing people comment on there and seeing who's popping on. And I was like, I really felt like they were all there with me. Like, I was not doing this, having to do this really hard thing by myself. And so I would say, if you're listening and you hear that and you're like, yeah, that's what I want, like that feels good to me, do it. And if you're listening and you're thinking like, No, I just kind of want to hide and I want to do this on my own and I want to wear fun wigs and nobody's ever going to know that I lost my hair, then do that. Like whatever makes you feel the best.
I like that you said that because I have a couple of friends who did cold capping. And
Mhm.
what the reason I know one gal who I interviewed earlier on talked about how she wanted that sense of normalcy. And the fact that you are validating, you need to do whatever feels right to you. And this gal was talking, her name is Amber, beautiful, such a beautiful girl. I met her in the infusion center and she was doing the cold capping. So I really wanted to do an episode on her. She wanted to have that sense of normalcy. And I really applaud her for making that decision. I applaud anyone who makes whatever decision feels right to them, because it's just such an individualized feeling, and in, like you said, you need to go what intuitively is best for you. And it worked really well for Amber. And she's so adorable. And it was just fun to learn about that because some people want to do that. I looked into it. I just thought I didn't have enough time, between my diagnosis and the chemo starting, that I chose not because I didn't want to. I just didn't think I had enough time. And so some part of me wishes I would have done that just to see what it
Mm.
was like. But looking back now, of course it was very traumatic to lose my hair. And I would never have cut my hair short like this on purpose. Um, like before cancer, because I always thought that I wouldn't look good with short hair. And it turns out I love it. And I actually bloomed my mother, who died 4 years ago in October. And so, like a lot of people, this is her color. It's just bizarre. It's a totally different color. And I actually really love it. And I'm going to keep it short.
I
I
love to
like
have
it.
short hair.
I can't believe it.
I did
And by
too.
the way, I saw your bald head, and you have a good head too.
Everyone says that. Like, you have the most symmetrical head.
Seriously, people told me that too, and my husband
Things
used
I
to kiss.
never would have heard, right?
Yeah, totally. Everybody, I like people. I actually, I showed pictures on Facebook of me bald, and I had tons of cute turbans and beanies and all the things. And I never once wore my wig. Never once. I just wore turbans and beanies or went bald.
Yeah,
And my
I went
husband used to
bald most of
kiss.
the time.
Yeah, my husband kissed my head all the time, told me how beautiful I was. It was really hard to kind of not have as many brows or any lashes, but whatever. I mean, at the time, I got used to it, I guess. And you don't have to do your hair in the morning, right?
True, it's very fast.
Um,
One thing I'll
now,
say about that too, if you want to include this, one other thing is that I think it's so much more. I think it's important to note it's not just the falling out of the hair or the eyebrows, the eyelashes. We know those things are coming, right? Those are the things we see in the TV shows and the movies, right? We know that's coming for most of us. It's for me, it was cancer was taking that from me. It was like another thing, right? It's like, great. First, it took my innocence of like ever walking into an appointment and thinking everything's going to be okay. Then it took my breasts. Then it took my confidence. Oh, great. Now it's going to take another physical piece of my body. And so for me, the cutting of the hair, like taking that into my control, that's why it was important to me, was like, you're not going to take this from me. You've taken enough. I'm going to take this one. And so it's more than, because I didn't really understand that before I went through it. The losing of the hair, I was like, I got it. Like, it's really traumatic, but okay, it's going to grow back. It's going to grow back. I mean, it's hair. It's gonna, like, but it's so much more than that. It's about this cancer taking yet another thing from you when you're already like so fucking exhausted and like mad and sad and all the feels.
I like that. And I do think it's really important for people to feel mad and sad and, because it does take a lot from you. And I have always tried to emphasize to people, because I did have people say this to me: feel it. Don't try to suppress it. Just feel it, because it's real and it's messed up. And if we try to suppress it, I really feel like it makes it sometimes even worse. Um, at some point in July, when I first started my chemo, I was in a really deep, dark place before I started the chemo, like dark. And I had a therapist in Australia that I reached out to, Eddie Enever, who I interviewed also. So you should listen to that. Um, Eddie Enever is a therapist in Australia. He's a three-time cancer survivor. And I remember late at night, I reached out to him. I found him on Facebook because I was so scared at the deep, dark place I was in that I needed to find something. So I went out on a mission to find some sort of support. Found him, watched some of his videos, and I reached out to him and said, and told him who I was, what had happened, and I said, I want to be able to incorporate, your therapeutic lessons in my journey, if I'm hoping it'll fit. So he reached out to me right away. He truly, truly pulled me out of that darkness.
I
And
can
I was able to move forward, and go through all of it and everything. There were all kinds of twists and turns in the journey, but he was able to pull me out of there and give me some things that I could do to get me through certain pieces. And we are still in touch to this day. Um, okay. I want to wrap up by asking if you could share a couple, maybe even just one thing, with those who are supporting someone with breast cancer, such as friends, caregivers, family members. What would that be?
I think that if you can say it honestly, and I think you have to check yourself first as the supporter. But if you know that you can honestly tell that person that this is hard and that you are there for them anytime, no judgment, you will just hold them, listen to them, whatever it is, tell them that as early as you can. And the reason I say make sure that you actually can say that honestly is you don't want to say it, or I don't think it's right to say that if you don't think that you can actually show up in that way, which is okay. If you can't, that's okay. There's other ways that you can show up for people.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that. I know we've kind of intertwined some of the last question in our conversation today. I just want you to end up telling us some of the most important piece of advice you can share with those who have been newly diagnosed and how they can navigate through their own journey.
Make it your own. Do what feels best for you. Set your boundaries. Know that this is about you and your body and your choices and your healing and health. There is no shame and guilt. You did not give cancer to yourself, no matter what. Allow yourself to feel everything and know that there are people like Jamie and myself that you can reach out to, and we will be there for you.
100%, Amy, 100%. Again, I swear to God, we're sisters. we share a brain. Um, yeah, it's your own journey. You make your own decisions. And I like that no shame, because I felt I actually had a couple of comments from people who insinuated that because I ate soy, I gave cancer to myself. Okay, insinuated that I gave cancer to myself. Or I remember hearing, "But Jamie, you were so healthy."
Oh, yeah.
And I thought to myself when I came out with it, and I thought to myself, "What? I am healthy." And it occurred to me that people don't realize that healthy people can get cancer too, right? So you didn't give it to yourself. I love the fact that you wrote this book. And again, it's called Bearing It All. I'm going to show it here and because I might show a little clip if people can see it. Bearing It All. We have resources in the show notes. I have the link to your book. I have a free chapter to download. Thank you very much. You have a link in there in the media. And also it shows your social media handles, your email, your phone number. Um, is there anything else? And you have a website. You're doing good things, Amy.
Oh,
You are forged by fire, and you really have come through this journey. And again, like you said before, we are still in this journey. We will be forever. It has changed our lives so dramatically. In and I love the fact that you were able to write this book for people, whether it be newly diagnosed, any kind of friends or family, caregivers, anyone should read this book to understand the real truth behind what breast cancer patients go through. And I just appreciate you, spending your time with me today. And is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it all.
I think we have. I mean, we could talk for hours, of course. Um, well, I just really appreciate your being on my podcast. It has opened my mind. I've learned a lot myself, and I think we're always learning. And I love the fact that you have that bright, shining light going out into the universe and helping other women and caregivers and friends and family and all the things. So thank you very much, Amy.
Thank
And to
you.
my audience, thank you for joining, and we will see you next time on the next episode of Test Those Breasts. Bye, Amy.